Where did you sleep last night? Zhen's voice sliced through the penthouse silence at 3:47 a.m., deadly calm, and Yan's heart seized as she found him silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows, her own phone glowing in his hand, because her husband had been tracking her GPS for 6 hours straight. And now with her blood-stained silk dress, oil-streaked skin, and bruises darkening her collarbone, the safety clicking off his gun could only mean one thing. 2 years of marriage, 24 months of covert operations, and the lethal truths she'd been hiding in the shadows were about to catastrophically detonate. Welcome to a story where the most dangerous person in the room isn't the Mafia boss, it's the wife he underestimated. If you love obsessive Korean kingpins who'd rouse empires for their women, secret identities that shatter everything, and romance so volatile it blurs the line between protection and possession, then lock your doors, silence your phone, and hit that like right now. Because once Jan Perry stops playing the delicate flower and reveals the tactical assassin beneath, you won't be able to breathe until the final page. Before we begin, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm responding to everyone. Click subscribe, like this video. Your support helps us bring more thrilling stories, and trust me, you won't want me to miss them. Let's begin. The penthouse was silent, except for the hum of the city 40 floors below. Jan's bare feet made no sound against the marble as she stepped inside, but she knew Jen had heard her the moment the elevator doors opened. He always heard everything. The passcode. His back remained turned, shoulders rigid beneath his white dress shirt. Give it to me now. Jan's fingers trembled as she reached for the clutch she'd dropped by the door. The small beaded purse looked obscene next to the smear of blood on her wrist. Jen, please. 6 hours. He turned then, and Jan felt the air leave her lungs. She'd seen her husband angry before, had watched him break a man's jaw for disrespect, had seen him burn contracts worth millions without flinching. But this was different. This was personal. His eyes were hollowed out, red-rimmed, and behind the fury lived something far more dangerous. Pain. 6 hours at a location you've never mentioned. Wearing a dress I've never seen. Coming home at 4 in the morning smelling like gunpowder and another man's sweat. It's not what you think. Then what is it? He stalked toward her, and Jan forced herself not to retreat. The Zhen Ye who'd kissed her forehead this morning was gone. This was the Reaper of Soul, the man who'd built an empire on the bones of anyone who dared cross him. Because from where I'm standing, my wife, the woman I've protected, provided for, kept safe from every ugly thing in my world, has been spreading her legs for someone else. The words hit like a slap. Jan's jaw clenched. Don't, he laughed, sharp and brittle. Don't what, Jan? Don't notice that you've been disappearing 3 nights a week? Don't see the bruises you try to hide with makeup? Don't wonder why my wife flinches when I touch her lately, like she's been getting her affection somewhere else? You don't understand. Then make me understand. His voice cracked, and for a heartbeat, Jan saw past the rage to the man beneath. The boy who'd lost everyone he'd ever loved. The husband who'd built walls around his heart and let her inside, only to believe she'd betrayed that trust. Tell me his name. Tell me who he is so I can kill him properly. Jan's breath caught. There is no one else. Liar. Zhen closed the distance between them, his hand shooting out to grip her chin, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to force her to meet his eyes. I can smell him on you. I can see his marks on your skin. His thumb brushed over the bruise on her collarbone, the one she'd gotten from a Yakuza enforcer's chokehold 4 hours ago, and his expression twisted. Did he make you feel things I couldn't? Did he touch you better than I do? Stop it. Jen's voice broke, despite herself. This was exactly what she'd feared. Not his anger, but his anguish. The way his jealousy was tearing him apart from the inside, and she couldn't tell him the truth without shattering the fragile illusion of safety she'd built around him. Your phone, Jan. Now. He released her chin and held out his hand, palm up. Waiting. Or I start making calls. My men are very efficient at extracting information. If there's a hotel room, a name, a single transaction that proves what I already know, I'll find it. And then I'll find him. She knew he meant it. Zhen Ye didn't make idle threats. Jan reached into her clutch with shaking fingers, pulled out her phone, and stared at the screen. Behind that passcode was everything. Encrypted files on his syndicate's traders, tactical blueprints of tonight's intercepted hit, communications with her handler. Evidence of 2 years spent keeping him alive while he thought she was shopping for curtains. The passcode, Jan. If she gave it to him, he'd know. He'd see the truth, and he'd either think she was a spy sent to destroy him, or worse. He'd realize she'd been protecting him, and his pride would never recover from knowing his delicate wife was more lethal than his best soldiers. If she refused, he'd assume the worst. He'd tear Soul apart, looking for a rival who didn't exist. Jan looked up at her husband, at the man she'd killed for in secret, and made her choice. No. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Zhen's expression went completely blank. Then he pulled his gun from his waistband, checked the chamber with practiced efficiency, and aimed it directly at her heart. "Then we have a problem, wife." Zhen didn't pull the trigger. Instead, he grabbed her clutch and upended it onto the glass coffee table. Lipstick, compact mirror, breath mints, and something that made his blood freeze. A second phone. Matte black, no case, completely generic. "What the hell is this?" He snatched it up before Zhen could move, his gun still trained on her with his other hand. The phone was warm, recently used. His thumb hovered over the power button. "Zhen, don't." He powered it on. No lock screen, no wallpaper, just a minimalist interface with 3 apps: encrypted messenger, a map program, and a camera. His jaw ticked as he opened the messenger. The most recent conversation was from 2 hours ago. "Unknown, package secure, exit route compromised. Recommend alternate extraction." Zhen confirmed. Switching to Protocol 7, Zhen's hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles went white. "Protocol 7. His voice was eerily quiet. "You have protocols with him. How organized. How professional." He scrolled further, his expression darkening with each message. Coordinates. Times. Code words that meant nothing to him, but clearly meant everything to her. "How long have you been planning this? Since we got married? Since before? It's not what it looks like." "Then, what does it look like, Jan?" He threw the phone at the wall, and it shattered against the marble. "Because from here, it looks like my wife has been running missions for someone else. Tell me, is he paying you? Or are you doing this for free because you love him?" Jan's composure cracked. "There is no him." "Then who the fuck are you texting at 1 in the morning? Zhen roared. He crossed to her in 2 strides, grabbing her wrist and yanking her toward him. His fingers brushed against something hard in her dress pocket, something metallic. Before she could stop him, he ripped the fabric and pulled out a small key ring. 2 keys, 1 silver, 1 brass. A plastic tag attached with a number, 1247. Storage locker. Zhen's face went completely still. That expression. Zhen knew it well. It was the look he got right before someone died. "What's in locker 1247? His voice had gone soft again, which was infinitely worse than his rage. "Nothing that concerns you." "Wrong answer." Zhen pocketed the keys and grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the elevator. "Then we're going to take a little trip. Right now." "Zhen, it's 4 in the morning. I don't give a damn what time it is." He jabbed the elevator button with enough force to crack the plastic. "You want to keep your secrets? Fine. But I'm going to see exactly what my wife values enough to lie to my face about." The ride down was suffocating. Zhen's driver appeared within 90 seconds of his text. No questions asked, eyes carefully averted from Jan's disheveled appearance. The storage facility was in Gangnam, tucked behind a legitimate shipping company that Zhen's syndicate used for money laundering. Of course she'd hidden something here. She knew he'd never look. The night manager took one look at Zhen's face and handed over the master access card without a word. Locker 1247 was in the climate-controlled section, the kind reserved for valuable documents and sensitive materials. Zhen shoved the key into the lock and yanked the rolling door upward with a metallic screech. Then he stopped breathing. The locker wasn't filled with love letters or gifts from another man. Instead, the walls were covered with photographs, blueprints, and surveillance reports. But not just any reports. Reports on him. His headquarters. His security rotations. His inner circle. Every detail of his empire laid out like a dissection. In the center of the back wall was a massive blueprint of his own building, with red X's marked on 12 different locations. Weak points. Entry vectors. Kill zones. Jesus Christ. Zhen stumbled backward, his gun dropping slightly. "You're planning a hit. You're..." He spun on her, and Yan saw genuine fear flash across his face for the first time in their marriage. "Who sent you? CIA? Yakuza? The Russians? Nobody sent me." "Bullshit." He grabbed a folder off the shelf and threw it open. Inside were detailed dossiers on his 3 lieutenants, complete with financial records, family trees, and daily schedules. "This is assassin-level reconnaissance, John. This is..." He froze, his eyes landing on a particular photograph. It was his second-in-command, Kim Dae-jung, shaking hands with a known Chinese triad enforcer. The date stamp was from 3 weeks ago, a meeting Zhen knew nothing about. His face went ashen. "When were you planning to tell me?" Jan's voice was steady now, cold even. "When were you going to mention that your own brother-in-arms has been selling you out?" Zhen looked up at her, and for the first time since she'd walked through that penthouse door, doubt flickered in his eyes. "What?" Didn't get the chance to explain. Zhen's phone buzzed once, a specific vibration pattern that made his entire body go rigid. The penthouse alarm, silent, synchronized directly to his personal device. Someone had breached the building. "We need to go," he said, already moving toward the locker exit. "Now." "They're not coming here." Jan's voice was too calm, too certain. They're going to the penthouse. That's why I switched to Protocol 7. I knew they'd track my movement and assume. The distant crack of gunfire cut her off. Somewhere above them, at least 40 floors up, automatic weapons had just opened fire. Zhen's face went white. My men are up there. Your men are the ones shooting. Yan was already running toward the car, her heels abandoned somewhere in the storage facility. Drive, now. We have maybe 4 minutes before they realize I'm not in that penthouse, and expand their search grid. Zhen's driver floored it, the Mercedes screaming out of the garage and into Seoul's empty pre-dawn streets. But Zhen wasn't watching the road. He was watching Yan, who had pulled a slim tablet from beneath the car's seat, his seat, and was typing with the speed of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. What the hell are you doing? Checking the security feed. Her eyes scanned the screen, and her expression tightened. Shit, they brought 8 men, professional gear, they're sweeping every room. How are you accessing my security system? Same way I've been accessing it for 2 years. She didn't look up. They're in the master bedroom now. Zhen, we can't go back there. Like hell we can't. He grabbed the tablet from her hands. That's my territory. My home. I don't run from. The feed showed a tactical team systematically clearing their bedroom, weapons raised, scanning for targets. Then the lead operator stopped, touched his ear, and spoke into his comm. Even without audio, Zhen could read his lips. Target not present. Expand search. They came for you, Zhen said slowly, the reality settling over him like ice water. Not me. You. For both of us. Zhen took the tablet back. But I was the priority target. They knew if they eliminated me first, you'd be vulnerable for the real attack in, she checked her watch, approximately 6 hours. You have a meeting with the Busan Syndicate at 11. Kim Dae-jung scheduled it. That meeting has been on the books for 3 months. And 3 months ago, your second-in-command sold you out to the highest bidder. John's fingers flew across the screen. Turn left here. We're going back. You just said. I said we couldn't go back unprepared. There's a difference. Zhen's driver, loyal for 15 years, didn't even question the order. He took the turn hard enough to make the tires scream. Within 7 minutes they were back at the building, entering through a service entrance that Jan somehow had the access code for. The elevator ride-up was silent, except for the mechanical hum. Jan stood perfectly still, her torn dress hanging off one shoulder, her hair wild, her face streaked with someone else's blood. She looked nothing like the elegant wife who'd left for a charity gala yesterday evening. She looked like a weapon. Stay behind me, Jen ordered, as the elevator dinged for the penthouse floor. Whatever's up there. Jan slipped past him, before the doors fully opened, moving with a fluidity that made his combat-trained instincts scream wrong. She crossed the foyer in absolute silence, then dropped to one knee beside the bedroom doorframe and reached beneath the decorative baseboard. Her fingers found a hidden release. A small panel popped open. She pulled out a Glock 19, checked the chamber with muscle memory that spoke of thousands of hours at the range, and rose in one smooth motion. Jan, what the? The lead shooter appeared in the bedroom doorway, submachine gun raised. He had maybe half a second to register the woman in the torn evening gown, before Jan put 2 rounds center mass and 1 through his throat. Professional, clinical, perfect grouping. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Contact, someone shouted from inside the bedroom. We have. Jan was already moving. She flowed around the doorframe with the gun raised, fired 3 more shots in rapid succession, and dropped behind the bed as return fire chewed through the mattress where her head had been. Feathers exploded into the air like snow. Jan stood frozen in the hallway, his own weapon half-drawn, watching his wife, his delicate, soft-spoken wife, execute a tactical assault with the precision of a spec op soldier. She rolled left, came up firing, and took out the second shooter through the walk-in closet mirror. The angle was impossible. The shot was perfect. The remaining gunman tried to flee toward the balcony. Jan shot him through the knee, then closed the distance and disarmed him before he hit the ground. She pressed the hot barrel against his temple. Who sent you? Her voice was ice. You have 3 seconds. Jen finally found his voice. John. She didn't even glance at him. 2 seconds. The gunman's eyes were wide with terror, staring up at this woman like she was death incarnate. Ghost. Ghost protocol. We were just supposed to confirm. John pulled the trigger. The silence that followed was deafening. She stood slowly, stepped over the body, and finally looked at her husband. Blood spatter decorated her cheekbone. Gunpowder residue marked her hands. Her chest rose and fell with controlled breathing. Not panic, just the physiological response to combat. So, she said quietly, now you know. The smoke hung in the air like a funeral shroud, curling through the shattered remains of their bedroom. Jan stood motionless among the bodies, her evening gown soaked in blood that wasn't hers, and watched her husband's gun hand tremble for the first time in their marriage. "Don't move." Zhen's voice cracked on the second word. The Glock in his hand, his own weapon, pulled from his own holster, was aimed directly at her center mass. Professional stance, proper grip, but his eyes were wild, unfocused, like a man watching his entire reality collapse in real time. "Don't you fucking move." Jan raised her hand slowly, the Glock 19 dangling from one finger by the trigger guard. "I'm going to set this down now." "Who are you?" The question came out ragged. "Not my wife's name. Not the bullshit identity you've been playing. Who the hell are you really?" She placed the gun on the dresser and turned to face him fully. "My name is Jan Perry. That part's real. Everything else is a lie." He took a step closer, and Jan saw the exact moment his tactical mind started cataloging details he'd missed for 2 years. The way she moved, the calluses on her hands that she'd explained away as yoga injuries, the scars she'd blamed on a car accident that never happened, the charity galas, the book clubs, the fucking Sunday brunches with friends I've never met. His laugh was bitter enough to strip paint. "You've been playing me this entire time." "No." The word came out sharper than she'd intended. "I was protecting you." "By lying? By keeping a weapons cache in my own home?" He gestured wildly at the hidden panel, still open, revealing 3 more handguns and enough ammunition to start a small war. "By building a goddamn kill file on my own organization? By keeping you alive?" Jan's composure finally cracked. "Do you think it's coincidence that every attempted coup against you in the last 2 years has failed? That the Yakuza hit squad that was supposed to take you out in Busan somehow got intercepted by Chinese police? That the poisoned whiskey at your birthday party last year mysteriously got switched before you could drink it?" Zhen's face went pale. "The Macallan. You said it tasted off, made me throw it out. It was laced with enough ricin to kill you 3 times over." She took a step forward, and his gun hand steadied. "I replaced it with an identical bottle from my emergency stash. You never even knew you were already dead." "Then who?" His jaw clenched. "Who the fuck hired you?" Jan held his gaze. "Your father." The words landed like a physical blow. Zhen actually stumbled backward, catching himself against the wall. "My father's been dead for 5 years. And 6 months before he died, he hired me." Jan's voice softened, despite the carnage surrounding them. "He knew the syndicate was going to eat you alive. You were too honest, too loyal, too willing to trust the men who'd served him. He knew someone would betray you eventually, and he knew you'd never see it coming, because you still believed in brotherhood and honor and all those other beautiful lies he'd fed you since childhood. So he sent a spy." Zhen's voice was hollow. "He hired someone to marry his son. He hired a fixer to keep his son breathing." Jan crossed her arms, and even in her ruined dress, even covered in blood, she looked like exactly what she was, a professional killer who'd chosen to be a wife instead. "I was supposed to observe, report, intervene only if absolutely necessary. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you." The gun wavered. "Don't. I wasn't supposed to spend 2 years killing people in secret so you could sleep soundly." Her voice roughened. "I wasn't supposed to build an entire life around protecting someone who'd shoot me the second he learned the truth. You lied to me every single day. I kept you alive every single day." Jan took another step forward, close enough now that the barrel pressed against her sternum. "There's a difference, Jen. And right now, with 8 dead men in our bedroom, and Kim Dae-jung planning to put a bullet in your head in 6 hours, you need to decide which one matters more." His finger tensed on the trigger. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then Jen's hand dropped to his side, and he looked at her with an expression that shattered what was left of her carefully constructed control. "Who trained you?" he whispered. "Russian SVR, then freelance work across 4 continents." She didn't look away. 73 confirmed eliminations before your father found me. 0 failures. And now?" Jan reached out slowly, carefully, and placed her hand over his. "Now I have 78. 5 of them were people who tried to kill you. The other 3 were people planning to." Zhen stared at their joined hands, at the blood and gunpowder residue mixing between their fingers, and laughed. It was a broken, desperate sound. "My wife's a fucking assassin." "Your wife," Jan corrected quietly, "is the only reason you're still breathing." Zhen pulled his hand away like she'd burned him. He moved to the window, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline as dawn started bleeding across the horizon. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, some fool who'd been sleeping next to a weapon for 2 years and called it love. "The warehouse fire in Incheon." His voice was flat, emotionless. "Last March, I was supposed to be there for a meeting with the Russian arms dealer. You had a migraine that morning, begged me to reschedule. There was no migraine." Jan stayed where she was, giving him space. There were 3 Serbian contractors waiting in the rafters with Barrett M82s. I found out about the contract 2 days before and couldn't eliminate them all without raising suspicion, so I made you sick instead. Slipped Ipecac in your morning coffee. His jaw ticked. You poisoned me. I saved you. She watched his shoulders tense beneath the blood-spattered dress shirt. The Serbians waited 4 hours, then burned the warehouse to cover the failed hit. If you'd been there, I would have handled it. He spun around, and there it was, the wounded pride she'd been dreading. I've survived this long without a goddamn babysitter, John. I built this empire from nothing. I didn't need the car accident in June. She cut him off cleanly. The one where you walked away without a scratch because the brakes failed at a red light instead of on the highway. You called it divine intervention. Jen's face went white. That was mechanical failure. The shop confirmed. The shop confirmed what I paid them to confirm after I spent 3 hours in your garage the night before, rewiring the brake system so it would fail safely. Jan's voice remained steady, clinical. Someone had cut your brake lines, Jen. Kim Dae-jung's mechanic, specifically. It was supposed to happen on the Gangnam Expressway during rush hour. You would have hit the barrier at 140 kilometers per hour. You can't know that. I have the security footage of him doing it. She gestured toward the tablet still clutched in her other hand, along with the wire transfer from a Macau account to his wife's sister's boyfriend. 40 million won. That's what your second-in-command thought your life was worth. Jen braced himself against the window frame. She could see him processing, cataloging, running through every close call and narrow escape from the past 2 years. His tactical mind, the same ruthless intelligence that had built a criminal empire before he turned 30, was connecting dots he'd been too blind to see. The food poisoning at the Singapore summit. His voice sounded strangled. August. I was violently ill for 3 days. Botulinum toxin in your room service. I switched the plates when you were in the shower. Jan moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. You ate mine instead. I'd built up a tolerance over 6 months by microdosing myself. Made me sick enough to be convincing, not enough to kill me. Jesus Christ. He pressed his palms against his eyes. The embassy party where I nearly drowned. Yakuza operative posing as a bartender. He slipped you a paralytic that was supposed to kick in when you went for your usual late-night swim. I saw him do it, couldn't stop it without blowing my cover, so I made sure I was in the pool with you when it hit. Held your head above water for 20 minutes while you seized. Told the doctors it was an allergic reaction to shellfish. You saved my life. The words came out like an accusation, multiple times, and never told me. That was the job. Jan stopped 3 feet away, close enough to touch but not touching. Your father hired me to be invisible, to let you believe you were invincible. Men like you, men who run empires, you need that confidence, that certainty. If you'd known someone was catching you every time you fell, I would have looked weak. Jen's laugh was acid. To my men, to my enemies, to myself. He finally looked at her, and the anguish in his eyes was worse than any bullet. So instead I looked like an idiot. A man so fucking arrogant he couldn't see his own wife was 10 times more lethal than his best enforcer. You're not an idiot. I married a woman I didn't know. The words exploded out of him. I shared my bed, my secrets, my empire, with someone who could have killed me in my sleep any night of the week. Do you understand how that feels? To realize the person you trusted most in the world has been lying to your face while saving your ass like you're some incompetent child. Jan flinched. That's not. Then what is it? He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, grabbing her shoulders. Not rough, but desperate. Tell me, Jan, because from where I'm standing, the woman I love just told me she's better at my job than I am. That everything I've accomplished, every threat I've eliminated, every victory I've claimed, it was all bullshit, because you were pulling strings I couldn't even see. No. She gripped his wrists, held his gaze. You built this empire. You earned every bit of loyalty, every territory, every alliance. I just made sure you lived long enough to enjoy it. Jen's phone buzzed against the dresser, the vibration obscenely loud in the silence between them. He didn't move to answer it. The screen lit up with a name that made Jan's blood freeze. Kim Dae-jung. Don't answer that. But Jen was already reaching for it, his face hardening back into the mask of the Reaper of Soul. Professional. Controlled. The man who'd never let anyone see him bleed. I have to. If he thinks something's wrong, he already knows something's wrong. Jan grabbed his wrist before his fingers could close around the phone. That's why he's calling. He's checking to see if you're dead yet. The phone stopped buzzing. 3 seconds later, it started again. Jen stared at the screen, at the name of the man who'd stood beside him for 8 years, who'd taken a bullet for him in Busan, who'd been at their wedding and toasted to their happiness with tears in his eyes. Dae-jung wouldn't. Dae-jung sold you out for $18 million and a position in the Shanghai Triad. Jan released his wrist and pulled up her tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Wire transfers. encrypted communications, meeting records. I have everything. He's been planning this for 11 months. She turned the screen toward him. Bank statements, surveillance photos, intercepted messages, all of it painting a picture of systematic betrayal. Jean's face went absolutely still as he scrolled through the evidence, that terrible blankness settling over his features that meant someone was about to die slowly. The phone buzzed a third time. This time, a text message appeared. Hyung, are you all right? Heard there was trouble at the penthouse. I'm coming up. He's in the building. Jean's voice was ice. He's here right now. No. Jean was already moving toward the hidden panel, pulling out tactical gear she'd stashed months ago. Kevlar vest, spare magazines, a combat knife that looked like it had tasted blood before. He's not in the building. That message was sent from a tower 3 kilometers away. He's trying to flush us out, make us think we're cornered so we'll run to the one person we think we can trust. Then where? Her phone chimed. Different sound, different device, the burner she'd pulled from the wreckage of her clutch. Jan glanced at the screen and went very, very still. What? Jean crossed to her in 2 strides. What is it? She turned the phone so he could see. A photograph, taken from a high-angle security camera. The storage facility, locker 1247. And standing in front of it with a team of armed men was Kim Dae-jung himself, staring directly into the camera with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Below the image, "Come home, little bird. We have so much to discuss." It's a trap. Jean's hand went to his weapon. He knows about the locker, knows we'd go there. He doesn't know about the locker. Jean was already stripping out of her ruined evening gown, revealing the tactical bodysuit she'd worn underneath. I led him there, left a GPS tracker in my clutch, made sure the driver took the most obvious route. I wanted him to find it. Jean stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Why the hell would you want him to find your evidence? Because it's not my evidence anymore. She pulled the Kevlar vest over her head, secured the straps with practiced efficiency. I cleared out the real intelligence 3 days ago, when I confirmed he was the leak. Everything in that locker now is fabricated. False leads, fake accounts, doctored surveillance footage that implicates 6 of his own men as the traitors. So he thinks I'm a corporate spy working for the Yakuza, and that you've been my unknowing asset for 2 years. John checked her weapons with mechanical precision. He thinks I've been gathering intelligence to destroy your empire from within, and that he's about to be the hero who exposes me and saves you. The Shanghai Triad promised him your position once you're eliminated, but he can't take it if your loyal men think he's the betrayer. He needs you to distrust me first. Zhen's expression shifted from shock to something darker. Understanding. The penthouse attack wasn't meant to kill us. It was meant to terrify us, drive a wedge between us, make me question everything about you. And the locker is the proof he needs to convince you I'm the enemy. She holstered her weapons, then finally looked up at him. He's betting everything on the idea that you'll choose brotherhood over marriage. That when it comes down to it, you'll believe the man who's bled beside you over the wife who's lied to you. The phone buzzed again. Another message. The clock is ticking, Zhen. Bring her to me, or I bring what I found here to the entire syndicate. Your choice. Zhen read the message, then looked at Yan. Really looked at her, seeing perhaps for the first time the weapon his father had placed beside him. The guardian who'd traded her identity for his safety. His jaw clenched, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every hard decision he'd ever made. Then let's go give him what he wants. The storage facility was too quiet. That was the first thing Zhen noticed as they pulled into the empty parking lot. No traffic sounds, no distant sirens, nothing but the pre-dawn stillness that made his combat instincts scream danger. John felt it too. He could see it in the way her hand drifted toward her concealed holster, the minute tension in her shoulders. He cleared a 3-block perimeter. She was reading something on her tablet, eyes scanning what looked like traffic camera feeds. Police have been redirected, street cameras looped. Professional work. Dae-jung always was thorough. Zhen checked his own weapon, a familiar weight that suddenly felt inadequate. That's why I trusted him. That's why your father didn't. John closed the tablet and met his eyes. He told me to watch Dae-jung specifically, said ambition was fine, but desperate ambition was lethal. Your second-in-command has been desperate since the day you promoted him. They exited the vehicle in sync, moving like the tactical unit they'd apparently always been without Zhen realizing it. John took point despite his instinct to protect her. He was learning, slowly, that protection wasn't something she needed from him. The entrance to the facility was propped open, an invitation that reeked of arrogance. He wants you to see this, John murmured as they entered. Wants you to watch him win. They found Kim Dae-jung exactly where the photo had shown him, standing in front of locker 1247, with 8 armed men fanned out in a tactical formation. But it was what Zhen saw behind his second-in-command that made his blood turn to ice. Demolition charges, carefully placed around the locker's frame, enough C4 to vaporize everything inside and everyone nearby. Hyung. Dae-jung's smile was all teeth, no warmth. I'm glad you could make it. And you brought the lying bitch. How convenient. Jin's hand tightened on his weapon. Careful with your words, Dae-jung. You're talking about my wife. Your wife. Dae-jung laughed, the sound echoing off concrete walls. Is that what you think she is? Should we tell him, little bird? Should we explain what you really are? Yan said nothing, but Jin felt her calculating, analyzing, running through combat scenarios faster than his men could aim their weapons. She was waiting for something. He just didn't know what. I have something better than words. Dae-jung pulled out a tablet, not unlike Yan's, and turned it toward them. Security footage, time-stamped from 4 months ago, showing Yan meeting with a man Jin didn't recognize in a Gangnam coffee shop. The angle was perfect, the implication clear. Your precious wife has been selling your secrets to the Yamaguchi-gumi for over a year. Names, routes, shipment schedules, everything they needed to dismantle your empire piece by piece. That's fabricated. Jin's voice was ice cold. The metadata alone will convince every lieutenant in Jin's organization that you're a traitor. Dae-jung's smile widened. I don't need it to be real, sweetheart. I just need it to be believable. And watching you two walk in here together, covered in blood, fresh from killing 8 men in your own bedroom, it sells itself. Something moved in Jin's peripheral vision. 2 more gunmen emerging from the shadows, weapons trained not on him but on Jin specifically. A targeted formation. This wasn't about killing them both. This was about leverage. Here's what's going to happen, Dae-jung continued, his tone shifting to something harder, more businesslike. You're going to transfer control of the offshore accounts to me. All of them. The Cayman holdings, the Singapore portfolios, the Luxembourg shells, everything. You have the digital keys, I know you do. You never go anywhere without them. And if I refuse? Dae-jung nodded once. The nearest gunman fired. The shot caught Jian in the shoulder, spinning her backward. She went down hard, and Jin's world narrowed to the spreading crimson on her tactical vest, the way her hand clutched the wound, the slight gasp of pain she couldn't quite suppress. That was a warning. Dae-jung's voice came from very far away. The next one goes through her skull. Your choice, Hyung. Your empire or your lying wife. Jin barely heard him. He was already moving toward Yan, but 3 gun barrels swung toward him in perfect synchronization. He froze, watching her blood pool on the concrete, watching her try to push herself up with her good arm and fail. Jin. Don't. She managed to get the word out through gritted teeth. Don't you dare, Jin. Those accounts represent everything you've built. Everything your father. Fuck the accounts. The words came out raw. Absolute. Fuck the empire. Fuck all of it. He pulled the encrypted thumb drive from inside his jacket, the one that held every access code, every password, every key to the kingdom he'd spent a decade building. Dae-jung's eyes lit up with triumph. That's my Hyung. Always so. Jin threw it. Not to Dae-jung but into the open locker, directly onto the demolition charges. You want it? His voice was perfectly steady, perfectly calm. Go get it. The standoff lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then Dae-jung lunged for the locker, greed overriding tactical sense, and Yan used the distraction to roll behind a support column, despite the bullet wound in her shoulder. Jin saw her move and understood instantly. She'd created an opening, and he had maybe 3 heartbeats to exploit it before Dae-jung's men adjusted their formation. He didn't hesitate. Jin charged directly into the kill zone, firing as he moved, trusting his wife to do the same. The storage facility erupted into chaos. 2 of Dae-jung's gunmen went down before they could process what was happening. Yan's shots, perfect even with a wounded shoulder, catching them in the throat and temple respectively. Jin took out a third with 2 center mass hits, then dove behind a stack of storage crates as automatic weapons fire chewed through the concrete where he'd been standing. Northeast corner. Yan's voice cut through the gunfire, clear and commanding. 2 shooters, elevated position. Jin didn't question how she knew. He simply aimed where she'd indicated and fired 3 rounds through the metal shelving unit. A body tumbled from the top rack with a wet thud, followed by a rifle that clattered across the floor. 1 down, but the second shooter had a better angle. Jin saw the muzzle flash, felt the bullet pass close enough to his head that he heard it whistle, and then Yan was there, moving faster than physics should allow with a bullet wound, tackling him sideways. They hit the ground hard, and Jin felt her body jerk as another round caught her in the Kevlar, right over her ribs. Stay down. She was already firing back, her breathing controlled despite what had to be excruciating pain. The elevated shooter took one of her rounds through the eye socket and collapsed. They moved as one unit after that, instinct and training synchronizing in a way that felt inevitable, like they'd been doing this for years instead of seconds. Yan provided cover fire while Jin advanced, then he laid down suppression while she repositioned. They communicated in glances and gestures, No words needed, reading each other with the fluency of soldiers who'd bled together in 100 battles. Except they'd never fought together before. This was their first dance, and it was beautiful, and terrible, and perfect. Dae-jung was screaming orders, but his formation was collapsing. He'd brought men trained to execute helpless targets, not to face a coordinated assault from 2 operators who moved like lethal poetry. Another gunman fell to Jin's headshot. Another went down when Yan put a round through his weapon hand, and then his chest as he stumbled backward. "The charges!" Yan shouted, and Jin saw what she'd seen. Dae-jung had abandoned any pretense of capturing them alive and was now fumbling with a detonator, his face twisted with rage and desperation. If he triggered those explosives with the thumb drive still in the locker, the blast would collapse this entire section of the building. Jin started to move, but Yan was faster. She broke from cover in a dead sprint, wounded shoulder and cracked ribs be damned, closing the distance to Dae-jung with predatory speed. She was going to reach him. She was going to stop him. Then Jin saw the last gunman, the one they'd both missed, hidden in the shadows behind a ventilation unit, swing his rifle toward Yan's exposed back. Center mass shot. Clean kill. She'd never see it coming. Jin didn't think. He just moved. He crossed 15 feet in less than a second, putting himself between Jan and the gunman, just as the trigger was pulled. The impact felt like getting kicked by a horse. Blunt force trauma that punched the air from his lungs and sent him stumbling. The Kevlar caught most of it, but the round had hit at an angle, and he felt something crack in his chest. Jan heard him fall. She spun mid-stride, saw him clutching his ribs, saw the gunman preparing a second shot. Her expression went absolutely cold. She killed the shooter with a double tap so fast it sounded like one extended gunshot, then pivoted and put 3 rounds into Dae-jung's hand as he tried to press the detonator. The device skittered across the floor. She was on him before he could scream, driving her knee into his solar plexus and then slamming his head into the concrete with enough force to crack bone. "Don't you fucking touch him," she hissed into his ear as he wheezed for air. "Don't you ever, Jan." Jen's voice was rough, pained. "I'm okay. She was already there, hands checking his wounds with clinical efficiency, despite the way her own blood was soaking through her tactical gear. "You idiot. You absolute. Why would you do that? Same reason you've been doing it for 2 years. He caught her wrist, held her gaze. "Because some things are worth dying for." The safe house in Jeju Island was nothing like the penthouse. No marble floors, no floor-to-ceiling windows, no view of an empire spread out below like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. Just a modest cottage overlooking the sea, salt air coming through open windows, and the kind of silence that felt like safety instead of threat. Jin sat on the edge of the bed, shirtless, while Yan changed the dressing on his cracked ribs. Her shoulder was bandaged too, her movements careful but steady. 3 weeks since the storage facility. 3 weeks since he'd thrown away everything he'd built for a woman who'd been saving his life in secret. "The Hong Kong syndicate made their offer again," he said quietly, watching her work. "Triple what the accounts were worth. They want me to rebuild, say a man like me is wasted in retirement." Jan's hands stilled for just a moment. "What did you tell them?" "That the Reaper of Soul is dead." He caught her wrist, studied the new scar tissue from where a bullet had grazed her during their escape from the city. "He died in a storage facility in Gangnam, and I'm not interested in resurrecting him." She met his eyes, searching for regret. "You don't miss it? The power, the control, the fear in people's eyes when they heard your name." "I miss thinking I was invincible." Jen's laugh was soft, self-deprecating. "I miss believing I'd built everything myself, that I was this untouchable god who'd conquered soul through pure will and ruthlessness. Turns out I was just a man who married someone better at keeping him alive than he ever was." "You were never just a man." Jan resumed wrapping his ribs, her touch gentle despite the clinical efficiency. "You built something real, Jen. Loyalty that wasn't bought with fear. Territory that wasn't taken with senseless violence. Your father knew you were better than him, better than the Empire. That's why he hired me. Not because you were weak, but because you were too good for that world, and he wanted you to survive it anyway. Instead, I burned it all down. You made a choice." She secured the bandage and sat back. "When Dae-jung demanded everything you'd built or my life, you chose me. That wasn't weakness. That was the first truly free decision you've made since your father died." Jen stood, testing his ribs, feeling the pull of healing tissue. Through the window he could see fishing boats dotting the horizon. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that a ghost sat among them. The others are scattered now. Your intelligence helped them disappear before the Shanghai Triad could absorb the territory. Last I heard, Min Jun was running a restaurant in Taipei. Sang Wu's doing security consulting in Singapore. Legitimate work. Yan moved to the window beside him. Your father would have hated it. My father was a criminal who died alone in a hospital bed. surrounded by men who were already planning how to divide his empire before his heart stopped beating. Zhen's voice carried no bitterness, just observation. I'd rather die old in a cottage by the sea with a wife who knows exactly how many ways she could kill me. 79 now, actually. Zhen's lips quirked. Had to eliminate a Yakuza tracker 2 days ago while you were at the market. He won't be reporting back. Zhen turned to stare at her. You killed someone 2 days ago and didn't mention it? You were buying tomatoes. Didn't want to ruin your domestic moment. She shrugged, wincing slightly as the movement pulled her shoulder wound. He was sloppy anyway. Followed the same route 3 days in a row. Wore the same jacket. Ordered the same coffee. Almost insulting, really. My wife is still a professional killer. Former professional killer. Jan corrected. Current professional wife, who occasionally has to kill people. There's a difference. He laughed then, really laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. Is this what normal feels like? Arguing about body counts over breakfast? Nothing about us will ever be normal. She turned to face him fully, her expression softening in the golden afternoon light. But it can be ours. No handlers, no obligations, no empire demanding we sacrifice everything for its survival. Just us, deciding each morning who we want to be. And who do you want to be? Jan was quiet for a long moment, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. Someone who doesn't have to lie to the person she loves. Someone who can say, I killed a man today, and not have to pretend it was a charity luncheon. Someone who gets to keep you alive because she wants to, not because she was hired to. Zhen pulled her close, careful of her injuries, and pressed his forehead against hers. Where are we sleeping tonight? It was the question that had started everything. Asked in rage and jealousy in a penthouse that no longer existed, by a man who'd thought he owned the world but didn't even know his own wife. Now it meant something different. Not an accusation, but a promise. Not a demand, but an invitation. Jan smiled, the expression transforming her face from the cold assassin to the woman who'd chosen him over every contract, every mission, every carefully constructed lie. Her hand drifted to the small pistol holstered at her hip, always armed, always ready, always his, and she met his eyes with absolute certainty. Wherever we want, she said softly. Together. Thanks for watching. Please like, comments, and subscribe.